there's always this element of being mission driven and focused on the world around us.
We took this approach of saying, okay, climate change is here. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And you're saving for retirement. How do you put those two things together? So we said, okay, how can we build something that's going to be a lot clearer and just simple, like, why everything's there. The rule I kind of have is like, I want an intelligent 8-year-old to be able to look at our portfolio and look at our materials and be able to say, like, yeah, I understand why this is here, and like double check us if something's wrong. Like, it's simple and clear enough.
What's your experience with like tech and AI been?
I've been somewhat slow to warm on AI. I think slower than we should have been, but it's hot now.
In general, do you guys use a lot of that in your own operations?
So we've built this whole program. It's like really simple. There's like a couple tasks a quarter. And one of the things we did is we now have, if we add a certain domain for us or email to a call with a client, it will make it an official meeting. And so it will then take notes in that meeting, and then we'll have an AI generated summary and the notes uploaded to that client's compliance file.
What is quite heartening to hear, based on what you said, is that you didn't just go with I need to use some solution. I think you kind of focused on where do we have gaps that we could fix with technology, right? And it's not just AI. I think technology in general, and that's definitely the right way to go about it, rather than just going based on FOMO or based on what other people are doing. Hey Zach, welcome to Advisor Ally. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
I was thinking last time we spoke, we covered a lot of topics from parenting to wealth management. And maybe I'll try and stick to fewer topics today, but very excited. I think always good to speak to a fellow founder. I get to quiz you, pick your brains, get some ideas. So I'm excited.
I've made a ton of mistakes, so happy to share what those were and what we learned, and hopefully
as does every
listeners.
No, absolutely, and as does every successful entrepreneur, Zach. So, lovely to have you here. Thanks again, but let's get started. So obviously you're running Carbon Collective now, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but I'm always interested in the journey that got you here, right? So would love for you to talk to us about that.
It was, I really like the phrase, life is only linear in the rear view mirror. Where, like 10 years ago, if I was like, I want to be there, like, no, it was like, this happened and that happened and that happened. You can kind of see how it looks, how it makes sense, but it's only looking backwards. So my co-founder and I, we've known each other since we were 4 years old. And this is the second company that we founded together. Our first company was in a totally different space. It was an agriculture startup using hardware and kind of all complicated things. It had a lot of promise. We couldn't get the tech to work and get over the finish line. So, but we wanted to keep working together. And in the beginning of 2020, this is actually pre-pandemic, we started and said, we want to build something in climate. What problems, in particular, are individuals having that we could build something to help them with? So we conducted 120 interviews in and around our network, trying to understand what problems people were having and where they're getting stuck. And a pattern started emerging where people said, I'm in these ESG funds, and I don't really understand why the top holdings are the top holdings. I don't understand why it's more expensive. I don't understand, does this make a difference in the world? Does this help protect me against things like climate change and stuff like that? And that was kind of our aha moment, that despite the popularity of ESG, which, remember, this was like the heyday, 2020, it did not actually have product market fit with what people are looking for sustainable investing, which in particular to them increasingly meant climate focused investing. And so then we took this approach of saying, okay, climate change is here. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And you're saving for retirement. How do you put those two things together in a portfolio that is not trying to be too complicated or cute, or have crazy models or stuff like that, but is kind of just broadly understandable given that? And that's kind of where Carbon Collective was born. And we started serving individuals, and now most of our business is actually doing 401k plans.
Understood, understood. Very interesting. And I know you spoke a fair bit about Carbon Collective itself, and we can get into that a little bit more. But actually, a couple of questions. And, it's amazing that you've built all these companies and you've had this journey with someone that you've known for, I don't know how long, right? From, you said 4 years old. How is that, how volatile has that friendship been once you guys started building together? I mean, I guess with friendship, it can always be volatile, but
Yes,
must be an amazing journey.
yes, it really has been. I think that a lot of founders would resonate with this, that your co-founder is kind of like a spouse and that you're married and you spend a lot of time together with it. And so having the right tools to kind of enter into, we're in conflict. What do we do? How do we get out of this? How do we make sure we're both heard? And then how do you kind of have an upward virtuous cycle of getting better and better and better on learning those exact same things that are really helpful in a marriage, where you can name it to tame it, kind of these other like basic tools, to be able to get to a point where like, yeah, we really understand each other and we feel prepared and kind of see the patterns of, oh, conflict is happening. This is the road we take within it. It's not to avoid the conflict. Conflict is extremely important. It's really important to be able to work through that, but can you do it without the heat? And that's what I feel like we've been able to get a lot better at, which means that you're just like iteratively chewing on ideas and having this like really rich back and forth instead of like a back and forth that like makes you feel like crap.
No, it's, it was meant to be a light-hearted question, but I really appreciate the gravity of the response. And I think obviously you guys have known each other for a very long time, but any kind of co-founder type relationship, you need some level of structure. And, what you said there, name it to tame it. I think things like that really make a difference, because rather than just hiding behind something, be upfront, get over it, and then build again together. So, yes. Yeah, some great lessons there, Zach. And the other thread that I noticed, from, Carbon Collective, obviously right now, but even prior to this, there's always this element of being mission driven and focused on, the world around us. I think your prior startup was trying to help with reduction of wastage in farms, and now you're kind of very much focused on climate friendly investments. Where did the roots of some of that come about?
So, again, it's always hard to kind of know exactly where that is. I'm Jewish. I kind of grew up and went to a lot of different kind of a hippie Jewish camps and schools and things like that. So I think there's definitely a big influence from that Jewish notion of tikkun olam, which is to repair the world. And so I think there's that big piece of it. It's coming from, I live next to Berkeley. It's kind of the waters I swim in to some degree. And it's some of the things that I think I get most intellectually excited about, where we can envision this world that is fundamentally better for everyone, the greatest good for the greatest number. But it's going to take work and change and building to get there. And so I think it's one of the most kind of fun, intellectual, creative exercises to be how do I meet the different stakeholders kind of within the system that we have today? But that is going to be kind of a pretty clear, positive step forward.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a massive problem statement, and it's interesting that the angle that you guys have taken, and I also quite liked the introduction to the problem statement that you set out to solve, right? In terms of saying that ESG was one of the first ways in, but then there is this feeling that perhaps that is not the right answer. And you also mentioned that you started with individuals and households, and then you're now kind of focused on employer 401ks. How did that happen? What is the proposition today? And also, I think you guys also now manufacture products, right?
Yes.
At Carbon Collective, which is again a completely different game in some ways.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
I mean, from the outset, we wanted to be in a position to offer both product and distribution, so product and service within this, and that this kind of came to our criticism of ESG, where if you go into this, and even just climate focused labeling in general, like I'm helping a nonprofit client of ours explore what to do with their endowment. And one of their board members was like, what about this? They're climate focused. What about this Fidelity climate focused fund? And I opened it up. First, it was like 100 basis points. So I was like, all right, that's pretty pricey. And the top holding is NVIDIA. The next one is Microsoft. The next one is Amazon. And so it's like it's billed as saying like these are the companies that are like building solutions to like global ecological challenges. And it's just there's just a big like what? There's a big disconnect there between that. And that is, I think, what a lot of people felt with ESG. It is not that there's anything wrong with those being the top holdings. It's not, there's nothing wrong with having kind of just like a passive investing, well, like NVIDIA's like the big market cap giant now and all of that. But it is this kind of falsification of why it's there. And this like, that kind of, greenwashing is a largely overused term, but it's just a mismatch that it ends up eroding trust. And so we said, okay, how can we build something that's going to be a lot clearer? And just simple, like, why everything's there. The rule I kind of have is like, I want an intelligent 8-year-old to be able to look at our portfolio and look at our materials and be able to say like, yeah, I understand why this is here. And like double check us if something's wrong. Like it's simple and clear enough. Like this doesn't seem like it fits with that. That would very much be our goal. In terms of our journey from individuals to 401k, we raised, we're a venture-backed startup. We raised kind of in the heyday when a company like ours that doesn't have AI and a ton of tech could. And we started with individuals and kind of saying like, we're going to make this B2C fintech work. We have a niche. The niche is climate and kind of this, which is, kind of there's a lot of effort and energy behind that at the time. Like we're going to ride this and get the math to work. And a lot of investors said like B2C fintech, the math is incredibly hard. And we said, no, but we have a niche. We're going to figure it out. We didn't figure it out. Maybe someone else could have, but we didn't. But I'm very grateful that as we went, our individual members started saying, I work for this climate-focused organization or this startup or this green business or this mission-driven company in this way. Can you help us with our 401k? We did a lot of exploration, kind of really digging into the existing guidance from the Department of Labor, the existing case law around diversification of investment philosophies in a 401k. And it's all like, yeah, the ways that other advisors are kind of approaching this on how to integrate things like climate-focused investing or ESG investing into these plans, we don't think it's the right way of doing it. And especially if we end up having a political change, which has now since happened. So that program has grown really well. And we just 2 years ago, so July of 2023, we had about 60 million in AUM. And as of Monday, now the market has gained since then, but most of our growth has been non-market. We have 220 million. So we've had pretty good growth over the past couple of years.
Got it. Awesome. And congratulations. That's massive validation for what you're building. And I think it's interesting you mentioned that manufacturing almost became a necessity for you because you didn't really have the instruments that you could put in front of your clients. I do have a couple of questions around that. So firstly, there's a big kind of generational shift that's happening both in terms of the wealth transfer and also the next generation slowly starting to think about finances a bit more seriously as they start kind of accumulating more wealth.
Yes.
How has that kind of helped your journey in some ways? I would assume that a lot more of this demand is coming from the current and the future wealthy generations. Perhaps I'm wrong. Do you have a comment on that?
It's hard for me to say conclusively. It's definitely a story we would tell our investors around like how many trillions of dollars are coming in the great wealth transfer and look how important climate is to this next generation. And you put those two things together and lots of money happens. And I would say in our experience, part of what I don't know to say with confidence is like, I am 36. I am a millennial. People who are other millennials are going to like trust me more just like because there's just like a kind of implicitness in that is different than if I was 60 or if I was 15. Like, it's just going to be different within that. So I do think that it is to some degree a tailwind. There are certainly more headwinds of this political environment and what's going on. So, a lot of what we talk about and the way that we frame what we're doing is saying, here are the assumptions that we have around this, that, oil is fundamentally a bad investment over the long term. It is going to be replaced. The things that are replacing them make sense as a better investment over a decades-long, time-long horizon. We should be globally passive, not fixed to any one geography in any percentage, because we're likely entering a more volatile time. So we should have that be able to shift around, and we should have no exposure to any type of fossil fuel bond infrastructure because it has underpriced risk, and instead overweight green bonds because it has underpriced benefits. If you agree with those things, then you're a good fit for us. And if you don't, there's a lot of other places that would love your business. And so that has really been the approach that we've taken. And we've seen it be pretty effective, just basically this is who we are. This is what we do. If you've been looking for that, then we'd love to work with you. And if you haven't been, then we're a square peg. You're a square hole. Find a square peg. And,
Got it. And fair enough, right? And I think, but you bring up an important point that obviously there's the values aspect of why someone would want to invest in alignment with what you guys bring to the table. But there's an economic aspect as well, right? And how you're talking about, whereas, how certain investment avenues are probably not the best avenues in the long term. But and this is the question that investors do ask, right? Yeah, I can go down this path, but am I going to make do I have to compromise on the returns? How was that handling that conversation been for you? And what is the truth there? Is there any truth even? The returns pretty much.
Yes,
kind of
it is
long.
This is one of the most common questions. And I think this is a big credit to the fossil fuel industry and kind of other groups for being able to make sure this really permeates, where there's an assumption that if I say sustainable investing, you probably have an almost implicit reaction that says charity. Or I'm going to accept lower returns from it. I am putting my own values or my own kind of bleeding heart ahead of the numbers in these things.
I'll take a discount for my values.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And there's definitely periods where that's true. But I think part of what's the challenge with this is that there is no universal definition of sustainable investing. There's no universal definition of ESG. I think a way of addressing this could be kind of helpful by going into how we define ESG and doing it from a why it could outperform perspective. ESG was invented by hedge funds to try and account for types of risk that were not associated for on the balance sheet. Diversification is the best friend of any investor, and saying, look, there's types of risks that we're not able to diversify for. We should have ways of quantifying those risks. Environmental risk, what happened if carbon taxes passed? Social risks, is there too much groupthink at the company? Governance risk, is there a singular CEO who could do crazy shit and really harm the reputation of the company, for instance? Those are the types of risks. Maybe you could see why you would make an argument for outperformance over the long term by doing that. The innovation, though, for ESG was quantifying these for the first time, and you had all these other use cases like values aligned investing or impact investing kind of glomp onto it when it was never built for that. When it comes to climate focused investing, we again always like to go to those first principles of what do the scientists tell us is going to happen, kind of our best guesses about the future. And then how do you kind of work backwards from that to make a reasonable, with slight tweaks, investment philosophy based around that is better to be overly simple than overly complicated. What has that actually meant for us in practice? So let's get to the meat of your question. There have been years that we have outperformed a traditional passive index or, kind of balanced 80-20 portfolio, and then years that we have underperformed. And this is something that we think strongly is not advisors will tend to shy away from. They're like, oh, I always have to make sure I'm performing the same. If I'm making some difference, I have to do what I can to perform the same as beta within this. And we think that that is wrong. If you have a different investment philosophy, you should have different performance. Hopefully, for something that's really broad, it shouldn't be like dramatically different, but the lines, look similar. But like if there's deltas between that actually means you're diversifying the types of investment access that you have. This is especially in a 401k plan. So in 2020 and 2021, we outperformed. In 2022, we underperformed. Energy was the only sector that was up that year. In 2023, we underperformed a little bit. In 2024, we outperformed. In 2025, we're outperforming so far. Pretty surprising in the Trump era that we are doing that. So I am very careful to not say like, oh, like this is going to work. This is going to be a way to generate alpha. It is, I don't know, but to say, look, these are the assumptions this is based upon. This is transparently what is in there. This is why that is the case. If you believe with these basic assumptions, that's what it's building for. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the future, though.
Right. I think that's you articulated it very well, and I think I like the way how you kind of changed how to look at that particular aspect, because it's actually about smart investing as well. And there are folks who probably look at it as pure diversification, not just values based investing. And when you do diversification, there are ups and downs as with any other investment, right? Otherwise, just put all your money in index funds, right?
Yes.
If you don't like that volatility, but and I also quite like the background to ESG and how it kind of came about. So thank you for that, for sharing that.
Yeah, it should be a story that's more broadly known, as ESG is such this boogeyman, and I feel almost kind of bad for it, in that it's the analogy to me is like Craigslist. You had Craigslist arise in the US, and it was like, oh, all these things started happening on it. Like people were like renting out individual rooms in their house and like selling used cars. And it was never built for those things. Now, obviously Craigslist did fine from that, but you had like Airbnb happen and like all these auto trading things. So I think that we are in this phase now of seeing the disaggregation of ESG into things that are actually much more targeted of what it was, of what people are actually looking for within that. And I think that we're playing our small part in that.
Got it. So there's a bit of a shakeout that's happening, and we'll see more of it. Obviously, you guys are on one side focused on the areas that you're focused on. And just to kind of complete the loop on that one, so you start with individuals and households. Now you're working with employers, 401k plans. Is it across the board in terms of the types of companies that you end up working with? We spoke a little bit about the types of individuals who are interested in something like this. What is the scene when it comes to the firms that you're working with?
Yeah, we still work with individuals. It's just not like an area that we're not like putting money into growing like we were before. So all of our kind of growth efforts are on the 401k side. Most of the businesses and nonprofits that we found, kind of have people at them that are like, okay, like, is there a fossil fuel free option in my 401k? For whatever reason, they're asking that question. That's a type of question that HR would get. And so part of our job is like saying, okay, we want for those people to be able to offer more diversification than they're getting. And they're just low fee passive plan. Now, we think it's very important. You always include the best low fee passive options. We're not here to remove options for anyone. We're here to diversify. We're here to add options to it and try to make them really distinctly clear and differentiated from each other. And then within that diversified investment philosophy, it is our job as advisors to pick the best performing funds underneath that. So we see, like B Corps and mission-driven nonprofits, other type of kind of like green businesses, climate tech startups. We also have a fair number of dentists that are clients, and I think it's it could be like a founder or the owner of it is kind of more driven in the direction of what we do, and we're starting to see it's really cool. We actually just had a referral for it's a business that has kind of no clear mission. It's like in agriculture, or it's like not a fits the box type of mission for us. And the referral is just like they need a great advisor, and that we've been able to really deliver that for our clients, and that they feel it and they feel the differentiation of it and the experience of working with us. That's exactly what we want to be able to offer too, that you can maybe come for the diversification, but you stay for the experience, and that experience could be good enough for those who don't care as much about the diversification.
Got it. Got it. So, any HR folks who end up listening to this episode, they should pay attention to this piece that we just covered. But no, very interesting and exciting to see the journey, Zach. Maybe switching lanes a little bit, getting closer to where we operate in some ways, and always interested to hear a little bit about what operators like you think. I mean, what's your experience with like tech and AI been in general? Do you guys like use a lot of that in your own operations today?
We have been somewhat slow to warm on AI. I think slower than we should have been, but it's hot now. And we're very much in it. The simple version is like all of my team is like has Claude or ChatGPT, open, and will like regularly communicate and kind of ask questions and use that for thought partnership, etc., research. But we are now, like, I am working on our outbound sales system. And so kind of luckily we're in a field, especially in 401k, where there's a lot of publicly available data. And so how can we build better tools, or kind of more customized to our use case tools than what is necessarily out there, purely internal of what we can do. But we're also looking at how can we then leverage, there's so much of the AI push is being like, how can you do that to help accelerate sales and keep, be able to keep your existing, humans, but just augmenting them better. There's obviously a lot of spam and trash that comes from that. And so much of what we built is around trust. So we're approaching it, I think, pretty delicately, but we're interested. I'd say the other use case that we have is like a very basic one that's been around for a while, is we have built our own 401k compliance software, which is complementary for our clients. It kind of sits alongside the record keeper. And the goal is to kind of offer a compliance vault for the client, because so much of what the Department of Labor wants to see, there's like the actual rules are really broad, but they want to make sure that you're like documenting your process and providing oversight and trying to follow through on the plan investment policy statement, kind of the other areas of providing oversight to the plan. So we've built this whole program. It's like really simple. There's like a couple tasks a quarter. And one of the things we did is we now have, if we add a certain domain for us or email to a call with a client, it will make it an official meeting. And so it will then take notes in that meeting, and then we'll have an AI generated summary and the notes uploaded to that client's compliance vault. And it's all just happens. All I have to do is just add it, and it all happens behind the scenes. And so it's like a level of documentation that I don't think has ever been done to this degree, especially for the 401k space. So it's pretty cool. We're pretty excited.
Very interesting. And did you build that in-house, or did you kind of get? Okay, very cool. I think operating the space, I think different firms are going at it differently, and I think what is quite heartening to hear, based on what you said, is that you didn't just go with I need to use some solution. I think you kind of focused on where do we have gaps that we could fix with technology, right? And it's not just AI. I think technology in general. Exactly. And that's definitely the right way to go about it, rather than just going based on FOMO or based on what other people are doing.
Yes. Yeah. We've like watched those videos that it's like the 15 AI tools I'm using to maximize my business. And we're like, 2 of these actually could be pretty interesting for us.
Yeah. We all have. So yeah, completely resonates. No, this has been brilliant. Zach, thank you so much for, spending this time with us, and learned a lot. I think you peeled the onion a little bit for me, and I'm sure, our viewers on climate and ESG and those related topics. So, wish you guys the best of luck. Very excited for where this journey takes you in Carbon Collective. But before we close, maybe a slightly non-shop topic, and what keeps you engaged outside work? I know you're very busy with two young kids, but is there anything else, any other poison or hobby that kind of floats your boat?
I wish I had time for it, to be honest. I was this last weekend, it was like 9 p.m. and I was in the middle of folding 4 loads of laundry, and I looked at my wife and I was like, I think I've had 0 minutes of free time today, like actually 0.
Right.
So I'm very much in the I have 2 young kids
The trenches, yeah.
phase of life, making it work. I also have a house with like 1 million stairs, which just like makes everything way harder. But if I had the time, I am not a tall person. I'm 5'9", but I really, really love playing basketball on an indoor court.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And if I had like 2 to 3 hours every day where I could just go like shoot around, play pickup, do that would be like my happy place to be able to do.
Got it.
Maybe it is.
So I hope you. Yeah. I hope that comes soon, and you get some time for yourself as well. But thanks again, Zach. Let me not take away too much of your time. I know you're very busy, but loved having you on. Enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Vineet. Thanks for having me.